The room was silent. Too silent. The hum of machinery in the background seemed distant, almost like an echo. Standing at the center of the sterile chamber was a girl young, but with an aura of deadly confidence. She was a Deathworlder, a being from a planet where survival was a constant struggle. Her name, Jera. Her eyes flickered, catching the glint of metal. She was used to the testing chambers, but something about this one felt different. Her hands were relaxed at her sides, her muscles ready, like a spring wound tight, but waiting for the signal to snap. The alien researchers stood behind a glass panel, observing her with cold, calculating eyes. They had never seen anything like her before. The Deathworlders were notorious for their strength, their resilience, and most of all, their speed. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was how fast a human could be. Not just in combat, but in survival. Jara's heart beat steadily in her chest, as if she were unaware of the impending test. Yet she was fully aware. The aliens' neural link system was about to be activated, a device that allowed their soldiers to respond faster than any human could, connecting their brains directly to combat machines. But there was something the aliens hadn't accounted for. The countdown began. A low hum vibrated the floor beneath her feet, and the lights above flickered. It was time. Activate. A cold voice echoed through the speakers. A split second later, the neural link surged to life. The technology should have connected to Jara's brain, syncing her mind with the system, preparing her for the incoming threats. But something unexpected happened. The moment the neural link tried to engage, Jara's body moved faster than the link could even catch up. She was already in motion before the technology could even activate. Her body reacting to a threat that wasn't there yet. Her arm shot out, knocking a dart away from its trajectory with an instinctive swiftness that shocked the researchers. They watched in awe as Jara's reflexes seemed to anticipate the dangers before they even existed. "Impossible," whispered one of the researchers, his voice barely audible. The link wasn't even active, and yet she moved faster than our soldiers ever could. Jara's eyes narrowed as she looked at the flashing lights on the console. The aliens had underestimated her, and it seemed they were about to make a grave mistake. The system had been designed to enhance speed, to connect directly to the brain, allowing the user to react in the blink of an eye. But Jara didn't need the system. She didn't need the technology. Her reflexes were a product of something far older: instinct, honed by years of surviving on a death world, where every moment could be her last. The alien researchers had never seen a human move like this before. They had always assumed their neural link was the ultimate form of enhancement, but Jara was proving them wrong. With every test, she was defying the limits of what they thought possible. She stood still again, awaiting the next trial. Her eyes were calm, almost serene, yet there was a quiet storm brewing inside her. The aliens had underestimated her once, but they would make the mistake of underestimating her again. The next test was already being prepared, but the researchers had no idea what they were about to witness. Jara wasn't just a human. She was a Deathworlder being born of battle, a survivor of an unforgiving world. And the aliens had no idea what they were truly up against. As the next test was announced, the lights in the chamber flickered again, this time brighter. The tension in the air thickened. The countdown began again, but Jara's focus remained unshaken. She was ready for whatever came next. Her pulse quickened just slightly enough to know her body was prepared, but she didn't move. She wasn't going to give the aliens the satisfaction of knowing she was anxious. She was always ready. The researchers watched as the test dummies were deployed, unaware that they weren't testing a mere human. They were testing a Deathworlder living weapon with instincts that could never be replicated by machines. In the stillness of the room, the countdown hit 0. The lights flashed one last time, and everything went black. The darkness didn't last long. A sudden surge of bright lights flooded the chamber, blinding for just a moment. As Jara's vision adjusted, she stood in the center of the room, feeling the familiar weight of the atmosphere pressing around her. She could hear the soft worry of machines, the clatter of alien voices through the speakers, but she ignored them. They were insignificant. She was focused only on the task at hand. The test dummies had been activated, their mechanical limbs moving jerkily toward her. But it was no surprise to Jara. These dummies were nothing but glorified targets, slow, predictable. She had faced worse. With a slight shift of her weight, Jara's body moved fluidly. It was a blur of motion, too fast for the average eye to follow. Her hands flew out, striking with precision, each movement an exact calculation. The first test dummy's head exploded into sparks as her fist collided with it. The second was disabled with a kick to its core, sending it crashing into the wall. The rest didn't stand a chance. The alien researchers were speechless. They had never seen a human fight like this before. The neural link was supposed to give them the upper hand. Yet the girl was dismantling their machines with barely a thought. The lead researcher, a tall alien with sharp, angular features, leaned forward in disbelief. "How is she doing this?" he muttered to his colleague. "The system hasn't even activated fully yet. Her movements are beyond anything we've studied." The colleague, a smaller alien with gray skin, simply shook his head. "She's faster than any of our soldiers. No neural link can keep up with her reflexes. It's like she's anticipating everything." Before it happens, Jara didn't hear their words. She didn't need to. She was in the zone, her body responding to each threat before it even made a move. The artificial dummies were a distraction now. They weren't real opponents, just simple targets meant to test her. She was ready for the next challenge, and it came quickly. The next phase of the test was activated. The room's lights dimmed, and a loud mechanical sound echoed through the chamber. From the corner of her eye, Jara saw it a massive armored combat unit 10 times the size of the test dummies. It lumbered into the room, its joints creaking with the sound of heavy machinery. The alien researchers stepped back, whispering among themselves, This is the ultimate test. If she can beat this unit, we'll have no choice but to admit she is a true anomaly." But Jara wasn't fazed. She had faced worse. The combat unit was slow, but its armor was almost impenetrable, and its fists could crush anything in its path. It was designed for one thing: to eliminate anything in its way. She could feel the weight of it moving toward her, its footsteps vibrating the ground beneath her feet. A deep growl emitted from its mechanical throat, and its arms swung toward her, aiming to smash her into the ground. But Jara was already moving. Before the first strike even reached her, she was sidestepping, her body moving with the grace of a predator. The unit's fist smashed into the ground, leaving a crater, but Jara was already behind it. She didn't hesitate. Her hand shot out, gripping the back of the unit's leg and using its momentum against it. She flipped, twisting in midair, and brought her knee down hard on the back of its neck. The machine groaned, its servos worry. In distress, but Jara wasn't done. With a final well-placed strike, she shattered the unit's power core, sending sparks flying in all directions. The hulking combat unit crumpled to the floor, its lights flickering and then dying. For a moment, the room was silent. The alien researchers stood frozen, eyes wide in disbelief. They had expected the Deathworlder to struggle, maybe even fail. But instead, she had taken down their ultimate weapon without breaking a sweat. Jara stood tall, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths, as if she had just completed a casual task. Her expression remained calm, unfazed by the destruction she had just caused. But in her mind, she was already thinking ahead, waiting for the next test. She wasn't here to impress them. She was here to prove something they wouldn't soon forget. The lead researcher spoke, his voice shaking slightly. This is ... beyond anything we anticipated. She doesn't need the neural link. She's far superior than any of our soldiers, any of our technology. We have underestimated her. The smaller researcher nodded, still staring at Jera in awe. We didn't just test her combat abilities. We tested her survival instinct, and she passed ... flawlessly. Jara turned her gaze to the researchers for the first time since the test had begun. She had nothing to say. Her actions had spoken louder than any words could. The aliens had been too confident in their technology to certain that no human could surpass it. But now they knew. They had learned a valuable lesson, and Jara, she was just getting started. The room was silent again. The hum of machinery seemed even louder now, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something. Jara stood in the center, her eyes scanning the room, sensing the tension building. The researchers had been watching her every move, but now they were more cautious. The alien researchers didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn the true reason for her strength. It wasn't just instinct. It wasn't just the Deathworlder blood in her veins. Jara had been tested and tested. Again, she had fought, survived, and learned, but she had also been trained. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a weapon. The lead researcher, still shaken from watching Jara take down the combat unit, finally spoke. "Prepare the next phase of the test," he said, trying to sound calm. But there was an edge of fear in his voice. Jara didn't speak. She didn't need to. She was already preparing herself for whatever came next. Her body was in a perfect state of readiness, like a bowstring pulled taut and ready to snap. The lights flickered once again, and the floor beneath her feet began to tremble. The researchers behind the glass panel stood a little straighter, their eyes focused on the screen in front of them. Something new was coming. A loud mechanical worry filled the room as a new figure stepped into the chamber. It wasn't another combat unit. This time, it was different. The figure was humanoid in shape, but far more dangerous, an alien soldier, larger and more powerful than any they had used before. It was clad in thick black armor, its face hidden behind a helmet with glowing red eyes. The soldier's hands crackled with energy, and its steps were heavy and deliberate. Jara's eyes narrowed, her fingers twitching slightly. She could feel the energy radiating from this new opponent. This wasn't just a test, it was a challenge, one that she had been waiting for. The soldier raised one massive arm, and a sharp, mechanical voice echoed across the room. Target locked, initiating engagement. Before the alien soldier could even move, Jara was already reacting. In the blink of an eye, she was charging, her feet barely touching the ground as she launched herself toward the soldier. She moved so fast that it seemed as if time had slowed down around her. The alien soldier swung its fist down with terrifying force. But Jara was already ducking, rolling to the side with the fluid grace of someone who had fought for her life. Countless times, her hand shot out, grabbing the soldier's leg and using its own momentum against it. In one swift motion, she flipped the soldier onto its back. The sound of metal scraping against the floor echoing through the chamber. The researchers gasped. They had never seen anything like this before. The alien soldier was strong, perhaps, stronger than anything they had built. But it was no match for Jara's speed and agility. She was like a force of nature, unstoppable and unpredictable. The soldier quickly recovered, its armor screeching as it stood up. But Jara was already on the move again. She dodged another strike, this time twisting her body in midair to avoid the heavy punch. Her foot lashed out, striking the soldier's exposed arm with a force that sent it crashing into the wall. The alien soldier staggered, its movements growing more sluggish with each attack. But Jara wasn't finished yet. She saw an opening and exposed weak point in the armor. Without hesitation, she dove in, her hands moving with surgical precision to disable the soldier's main power core. In an instant, the soldier froze, its movements stuttering before coming to a complete stop. Sparks flew from the broken power core, and the lights in the soldier's helmet dimmed. It was over. Jara stood over the defeated soldier, breathing steadily, not even breaking a sweat. She had taken down another one of their most powerful creations, just like that. Her eyes glanced over to the researchers who were now staring at her in utter disbelief. The lead researcher swallowed hard. What are you? He whispered, unable to hide the fear in his voice. Jara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her actions had already spoken louder than any words ever could. The aliens had been underestimating her from the very beginning, but now they had no choice but to see the truth. She wasn't just a human. She was something far more dangerous. The smaller researcher, who had been quiet until now, turned to his superior. We need to stop. She's too strong. If we continue, we risk everything. But the lead researcher's mind was already racing. He could feel the weight of his decision pressing on him. The aliens had invested too much in this project to back down now. They had to understand the full potential of this Deathworlder, no matter the cost. We continue, the lead researcher said, his voice shaking but firm. She hasn't shown us everything yet. We need more data. Jara heard his words, but she didn't care. She had no intention of being anyone's experiment. She had already proven what she was capable of. If they wanted more, they would soon find out just how far she would go to survive. The next test was already on its way. And Jara was ready. The tension in the room was palpable. Jara stood tall in the center of the testing chamber, her body alert, and ready for whatever the aliens threw at her next. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was fighting to prove a point. She had already defeated their machines, their soldiers, and now they were about to see what truly happened. When they pushed her too far, the lead researcher, still in shock from Jara's previous victories, looked toward his team. Prepare the final test, he ordered, though his voice faltered. The alien soldiers had all failed. Their machines, too. And Jara had barely broken a sweat. But he couldn't stop now. They had gone too far. There was too much at stake. He needed to see how far Jara's abilities truly went, even if it meant risking everything. The researchers turned to the last phase of the test. They began to activate something much more dangerous than anything they had used before. The lights in the room dimmed, and the air seemed to grow heavier. The chamber's walls buzzed with an ominous energy as a new figure emerged from the shadows. This was no ordinary test subject. This was a creature designed to face even the most skilled combatants, an ancient bioengineered predator that had once been used in wars across the galaxy. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with razor-sharp claws and fangs that glinted in the low light. Its skin was a dark, chitinous exoskeleton, almost impenetrable to most weapons. The creature's eyes glowed a deep, unsettling red. And its massive form filled the room with a terrifying presence. Jara felt a surge of adrenaline. She had faced monsters before, but this was different. The creature was not just strong. It was intelligent, a living weapon built for one purpose: to kill. And now it was coming for her. The alien researchers watched with bated breath, knowing they had chosen their last test carefully. This creature was their last hope. If Jara could defeat it, they would have no choice but to accept that humans were more powerful than they had ever believed. The creature lunged, its claws extending toward Jara with terrifying speed. But just like before, she was already in motion. With the precision of a predator, Jara dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's deadly swipe. She didn't wait. She didn't hesitate. She was already moving, anticipating its every move before it even happened. Jara struck first, her fist landing against the creature's chest with a sharp, bone-crushing force. The creature recoiled, but it wasn't done yet. With a guttural roar, it swung its arm back, smashing through the air with enough force to break through steel. Jara barely managed to duck in time, the air rushing past her as the claws missed her by inches. She rolled to her feet, never giving the creature a chance to recover. Her body was a blur, moving faster than the alien predator could track. She aimed for its joints, striking with perfect accuracy, but the creature was tough. Its exoskeleton absorbed most of her blows, and each strike only seemed to enrage it further. The creature's eyes glowed brighter, and its movements became more erratic. It was learning, adapting to her speed and fighting style. But Jara wasn't worried. She had fought things far worse than this. She knew how to win. She just had to outsmart it. As the creature charged at her again, Jara saw her opening. It was coming in too fast. This was the moment she had been waiting for. With a flash of movement, she dropped to the ground, her legs sweeping the creature's feet out from under it. The beast crashed to the ground, its massive form hitting the floor with a thunderous thud before it could get up. Jara was already on top of it. Her hands moved quickly, her fingers finding the weak spot beneath its armored plating. With a twist, she ripped through the creature's underbelly, exposing its vulnerable internal systems. The predator let out a final, deafening screech as sparks and glowing energy leaked from its body. The creature struggled for a moment, but Jara's final strike was enough. With a single swift blow to its power core, the monster fell silent. The room was filled with a quiet hum. It's the only sound coming from the distant machinery that had powered the creature. Jara stood, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling with exertion. She wiped the sweat from her brow and glanced toward the glass panel, where the alien researchers were frozen in disbelief. They had pushed her to her limits, and now they knew. They had created something that could not be controlled, something that had surpassed their wildest imaginations. Jara wasn't just a human. She was a force of nature, a being capable of taking down the deadliest of opponents. The lead researcher swallowed hard and turned to his team. This is beyond anything we ever expected. We have no choice but to accept the truth. She is more than just a survivor. She is the future. Jara didn't care for their words. She didn't care for their admiration or their fear. She had proven herself, and that was enough. She had survived their tests, their games, and now she was free to go. But deep down, Jara knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned what humans were capable of, and there was no turning back. The aliens would remember her, and they would fear her. And if they didn't, well, she would make them. The chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of the machines and the distant buzz of electricity. The alien researchers, still in shock from Jara's overwhelming victory, stood frozen behind their glass observation panel. They had witnessed something beyond their understanding. The last test had been their final attempt to gauge Jara's true power, and she had shattered all expectations. Jara stood in the center of the room, breathing steadily but with a hint of exhaustion. Her body was bruised from the intense fight with the bioengineered predator, but she had emerged victorious once again. The creature's massive body lay motionless on the floor, its dark exoskeleton cracked and lifeless. For a moment, Jara simply stood there, looking down at her defeated opponent. It wasn't victory she was after. It was something much more important. She was here to send a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. The lead researcher, his face pale and sweating, finally found his voice. What are you? You're not just a human. You're something more. Jara's eyes flicked to the glass panel, meeting the researcher's gaze. He was clearly rattled, struggling to make sense of everything that had happened. She didn't respond. There was nothing to say. She had proven everything they needed to know. The smaller researcher, still trembling from the sight of Jara's power, turned to his superior. "We've made a huge mistake," he whispered. "She's not like any human we've encountered. She's different far beyond anything we've ever studied." The lead researcher nodded, his expression filled with a mixture of fear and awe. "I see that now. She's not just a test subject. She's a weapon. It's a living weapon. And we've been playing with fire." But the truth was, Jara wasn't just a weapon. She wasn't anyone's experiment. She was a symbol of everything the aliens had underestimated about humanity. The galaxy had always looked down on humans, seen them as weak, primitive beings unworthy of power. But Jara was proving them wrong, one test at a time. "I'll give you what you want." The lead researcher continued, trying to regain some control over the situation. "We'll end the tests. We'll stop. You've shown us everything we need to know. You've beyond what we can comprehend." Jara's gaze was hard as she listened to the alien's words. She had heard enough. She wasn't interested in their false promises or apologies. They had made her fight for every inch of respect, and now they were trying to take credit for her strength. It wasn't theirs to take. As she turned to leave the chamber, a sudden voice echoed through the speakers, halting her in her tracks. "Wait, Jara." Froze. The voice was familiar, cold, authoritative. It belonged to the High Commander of the alien forces, the one who had overseen her capture and brought her to this place. She had been expecting this moment. "You think you've proven yourself, Deathworlder." The High Commander's voice boomed through the speakers. "You've only seen a small part of what we can do. You may have won this battle, but you will never win the war." Jara's lips curled into a slight smirk, but she didn't turn around. She wasn't afraid. "I don't need to win the war," she said, her voice steady and confident. "I just need to show you that you've already lost." A pause. The High Commander's voice came again, but this time there was something different in it. Something darker. "You don't understand, do you? We didn't bring you here just to test your combat skills. We didn't capture you to fight your battles for you. You've been part of a much larger plan. You're not just a pawn in our game, you are the game." Jara's eyes narrowed. She felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to show weakness. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. The High Commander's laughter echoed through the speakers, cold and menacing. "You were never meant to leave, Deathworlder. You were meant to be the catalyst for something far more dangerous. You're a key piece in our invasion plan, a tool we've been carefully studying for months. You think you're fighting for freedom, but in reality, you're already ours." Jara's heart raced. She had known something wasn't right, but now it was clear. The aliens had never intended to let her go free. She was a part of their grand scheme, and they had been manipulating her every move. But Jara wasn't about to let them win. Not now, not ever. The researchers, still standing behind the glass panel, exchanged nervous glances. They had no idea what the High Commander was talking about, but the fear was evident on their faces. Jara was a wild card, a force they had never truly understood, and now they realized that their own plan had backfired. Jara took a deep breath and turned to face the glass panel one last time. "You think you can control me? You think you can control humanity?" Her voice was cold and full of conviction. "You're wrong. You've made a mistake, and I'm going to make sure you regret it." With those words, Jara turned and strode out of the chamber, her steps purposeful, her mind already racing with plans. The aliens had thought they could use her, but now she was the one in control. She wasn't just a tool. She was the weapon. They had created, and she was going to use it to destroy their plans, no matter the cost. Jera's mind raced as she moved through the dark corridors of the alien facility. The High Commander's words echoed in her head, growing louder with each step she took. You're part of a much larger plan. You are the game. She had known there was something off about their tests, something they weren't telling her, but this was worse than she could have ever imagined. She had been used as a tool bait to lure out the full extent of her abilities. The aliens had been studying her, analyzing her every move, all the while preparing her to be a key figure in their invasion of Earth. They hadn't captured her to study her as a simple specimen. They had plans for her. And now she knew exactly what they were: control. But Jera wasn't about to let them win. She rounded a corner, her footsteps silent in the dimly lit hallway. The walls seemed to close in on her, the cold metal pressing down like the weight of the universe itself. She didn't know how much time she had, but it didn't matter. The game had changed. She wasn't going to play by their rules anymore. As she approached the main control room, her thoughts turned to the humans back home. They were in danger, unaware that the aliens had been preparing for an invasion. She had to warn them, stop the aliens before it was too late. But how? She had no allies, no resources, and the entire alien facility was working against her. Jera paused in front of a door that led into a large command center. She knew what was inside, the nerve center of the operation where the aliens controlled everything. The lead researcher and the High Commander would be there, overseeing the final stages of their invasion plan. It was the perfect place to strike. Taking a deep breath, Jera activated the control panel beside the door. It slid open silently. Inside, the room was bathed in a soft blue glow. Alien consoles blinked with unreadable symbols and large holographic screens displayed star maps, battle strategies, and various military data. At the far side of the room, the High Commander stood with several of his officers, discussing the next phase of their operation. Jera didn't hesitate. Her eyes locked onto the High Commander. This was the moment. Without warning, she leaped into the room, moving faster than the guards could react. They scrambled, but it was too late. Jera was already among them, her hands striking with surgical precision. She disabled their weapons, knocked them out cold, and cleared a path to the High Commander. The High Commander turned just in time to see Jera closing the distance. His eyes widened in shock. What are you doing?" His voice was a mix of disbelief and anger. Jera didn't respond. She didn't need to. With a swift motion, she grabbed the High Commander by the collar and lifted him off the ground. His feet dangled in the air as he struggled against her grip. "You underestimated me," Jera said, her voice low and cold. "You thought you could use me, control me, but I'm not your puppet." The High Commander sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "You'll never defeat us. We've already set the invasion in motion. Earth's fate is sealed. You can't stop it." Jara's grip tightened, and the alien leader's sneer faltered. "I can stop it," she said, her eyes narrowing. "And I will." With a single, powerful motion, Jera threw the High Commander aside, sending him crashing into a console. The room was silent, the alien officers frozen in shock. They hadn't expected this, a human, one they thought they could control, standing in the heart of their operation and taking down their leader. But Jara wasn't done yet. She moved swiftly to the control panel, smashing it with a swift blow. Sparks flew, and the holographic screens flickered and died. The room plunged into chaos as the system failed, triggering alarms that echoed throughout the facility. The lead researcher, who had been watching from a distance, finally spoke up, his voice filled with panic. "What have you done? You'll destroy everything." Jara turned, her expression unwavering. "I'm not destroying it. I'm stopping it. I'm taking control." With that, she began disabling the facility's main systems, overriding the alien commands that had been controlling the invasion fleet. She hacked into the communications network, sending out a message to every ship in the fleet, ordering them to stand down. As the facility's systems began to collapse, Jara knew the battle was far from over. This was just the beginning. She needed to reach Earth, warn them, and stop the invasion before it was too late. The lead researcher's voice came again, shaking with fear. "You can't stop us. The invasion is already underway." But Jara wasn't listening. She had already set her plan in motion. The aliens had made a fatal mistake by thinking they could use her. Now they would learn the true power of humanity. With one final move, Jara activated the self-destruct sequence in the alien facility, setting a countdown that would destroy everything. The countdown began, and she knew she didn't have much time. She turned, heading toward the exit with a single thought on her mind. Earth was depending on her. The aliens thought they had one. But Jara wasn't finished yet. As the countdown continued, Jara made her way out of the command center, knowing she had a long road ahead. She had stopped their first step, but the fight wasn't over. This was just the beginning of her war. Jara's footsteps echoed through the empty halls as the countdown continued. Her heart was steady, but her mind raced with thoughts of what came next. She had done everything she could to stop the invasion for now, but the war wasn't over. The aliens would find a way to regroup, to adapt, and when they did, they would be ready for her. But Jara was ready for them, to dour as she moved through the wreckage of the alien facility. Alarms blared in the background, the sound of destruction filling the air. The walls shook with the force of the self-destruct sequence she had triggered. The aliens had built this place, this network, to be a machine of war, but they hadn't planned for someone like Jara. She finally reached the exit, her mind sharp as she stepped outside. The sight before her took her breath away. Above, the sky was filled with the dark silhouette of the alien fleet. Ships that loomed like shadows, their weapons primed to strike. They were ready for the invasion. But now they were stalled. Jara scanned the sky, her eyes narrowing with determination. This was it. The moment that would decide the fate of Earth. The aliens thought they had prepared for everything, but they had never prepared for a Deathworlder human who would fight to the very end. She reached for the small device she had stolen earlier, one of the few things the aliens hadn't anticipated her taking. It was a communication relay, capable of sending signals across vast distances. She quickly activated it, typing in the emergency frequency for Earth's military command. The connection crackled for a moment, but then the voice on the other end came through clear. "This is Earth Command. Do you read us?" Jara exhaled with relief. "This is Jara, a survivor from the alien facility. I've stopped their invasion plans. For now, but the fleet is still in orbit. They're coming, and we need to act fast." There was a long pause, and Jara could hear the chatter of voices in the background. Earth Command was processing the information, but it didn't matter. Jara had given them the chance they needed. Now, it was up to Earth to take the next step. "We've got your transmission," the voice finally responded. "Stand by. We're mobilizing forces. This is far from over, but we'll take it from here. You've done more than anyone could have imagined." Jara's grip tightened on the device, her eyes still on the sky. The fleet of alien ships above her was massive, more powerful than anything Earth had ever faced. But she knew Earth's forces would fight back with everything they had. She had given them a fighting chance. Then, without warning, the alien fleet shifted. The ships began to move, changing course, their weapons now aimed directly at the planet below. Jera's pulse quickened. They weren't going to wait. They were going to strike before Earth could organize its defense. She glanced back at the facility, knowing time was running out. The aliens wouldn't let her get away. They would come for her, just like they had come for Earth. But she wasn't going to run. She wasn't going to hide. Not anymore. With a final glance at the fleet, Jara took a deep breath and sprinted toward the nearest launch pad. There was still one thing left to do. She had to stop them right now. As she reached the launch pad, Jara spotted a small craft. It was nothing like the massive alien ships that filled the sky, but it was enough for her to make one last strike. The control systems were alien, but she had learned to operate their technology. She wasn't afraid. She was going to make the aliens regret every moment they spent underestimating humanity. With no time to waste, Jara climbed into the craft and powered it up. The engines roared to life as she lifted off the ground, heading straight for the alien fleet above. Her mind was set. She was going to make sure the aliens never reached Earth. If she had to fight them alone, she would. As she ascended through the atmosphere, her heart pounded. The alien ships loomed larger with every passing second, their massive forms closing in. But Jara didn't falter. She had come this far, and she wasn't backing down now. Her fingers flew over the controls as she activated the craft's weapons, preparing for the final assault. This wasn't just a fight for survival. 'Twas a fight for the future of humanity. The first blast from the alien fleet came just as she reached the outer edge of the formation. The impact sent shockwaves through the craft, but Jara held her ground, adjusting her course and evading the barrage. She fired back, taking down one of the smaller ships in the fleet. But it was clear she couldn't take them all down by herself. Suddenly, a voice came over the comms. "Jara, this is Earth Command. We're with you. We've mobilized a fleet of our own. We'll engage the alien ships on your signal." Jara's eyes burned with determination. "Get ready. I'm opening the path." With one final, powerful maneuver, Jara dove straight into the heart of the alien fleet, dodging blasts and weaving between massive warships. The craft shook as explosions rang out around her, but she was undeterred. She fired off a massive burst, hitting the central command ship of the alien fleet. Sparks and debris flew as it exploded in the vacuum of space. "Now," Jara shouted. Earth's fleet arrived just in time, launching a full assault on the alien forces. The battle was fierce, but with Jara's bold strike, Earth had the opening it needed. The invaders were not prepared for humanity's resilience, and one by one, the alien ships began to fall. Jara watched as the sky above her erupted into chaos, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Earth had a chance to fight back. Humanity had a chance to win. As the last of the alien ships were destroyed, Jara allowed herself a moment of relief. She had done it. The invasion had been stopped thanks to her. The battle was over. But the war, that was just beginning.